Today, new photos show Joe Biden's cheat sheet for his press conference yesterday. And Governor Kemp in Georgia signs a massive election integrity bill, which leads to the arrest of a Democrat lawmaker in Georgia. We have got a crazy Friday coming up, and it starts right now. Welcome to the News and Why It Matters. Happy Friday. I'm Sarah Gonzalez, today joined by political commentator John Doyle, back in the house, even though
You allowed me back.
He offended me
Yeah.
greatly, I might add. But I found it in my heart to forgive you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Also joined by Amy Robbins, CEO of Alexo Athletica.
You know I love being here.
Yes.
And nothing else I would rather do on a Friday.
Yes.
So good.
Well, thank you for being here. And I feel like maybe if we have time, let's chat about what's going on this week in the world today as far as all of the
Well, I
gun
wore
control.
my friendly reminder today.
I noticed.
For anyone wondering, Second Amendment equals freedom. We lose that, we lose our freedom. And if we want to jump into that, we can later on. But yes.
Amen. All right. So yesterday, of course, Biden's first press conference since becoming president. He set that's not the record that you want to be setting, but in modern times, first president to go this long without a press conference. Finally had it, and it was interesting. I feel like we expected it, but I'm not sure that, mainstream media journalists, NBC News, I forget who it was, but one of the reporters there was like, Joe Biden's on fire right now, coming out of the gate. And then very shortly after that was like, oh, he looks tired and weak, and I'm not sure that he knows what day it is. So let's play Joe Biden yesterday when he was answering a question and then all of a sudden was like, there's that old saying that goes, well, anyway, I don't know what I was saying anymore. Watch.
Thank you, Mr. President. To follow up on the filibuster, so do you believe it should take 60 votes to end a filibuster on legislation or 51?
If we could end it with 51, we would have no problem. You're going to have to, the existing rule, it's going to be hard to get a parliamentary ruling that allows 50 votes to end the filibuster, the existence of a filibuster. It's not my expertise in what the parliamentary rules and how to get there are, but our preoccupation with the filibuster is totally legitimate. But in the meantime, we got a lot we can do while we're talking about what we're going to do about the filibuster.
Yeah, that was not the clip that I was looking for. But you saw Joe Biden losing his train of thought, saying, the best way to get something done is to, Well, anyway, I won't bore you with completing my thought. Okay, because I don't know what I was saying. So he was hit pretty hard. What did you think of his first press conference, John?
I thought that it was very interesting to watch how, unlike probably every other president we've ever had, his thoughts were catching up to his words rather than vice versa. Like typically when you're speaking or monologuing, you have like the thoughts and then you're trying to like articulate them, but there's just like nothing going on there. It's like not even like the hamster with the wheel. And so he's just like saying words, hoping like he finds it somewhere or can like catch it up. And then he's got the like 4 or 5, here's the deal. Look,
right?
And just like his little like filler words, and it's just like it's such an embarrassment to the country.
And did you guys notice?
Is.
I didn't realize this until it was pointed out, and I wish that I could give credit to exactly who it was. I don't remember who pointed it out, but there was someone online who pointed out that he would randomly yell different words. Like if you listen to his answers, and it was like he got very angry as he was talking about something, and he'd be like, and also I would like to just say, it was the unions who did that. It was very bizarre if you go back and watch the clip.
Maybe they practiced that. Maybe that was why this has taken 65 days to get to this point, because they're like, okay, just yell random words.
Yeah, it was just like old man yelling at cloud.
They told him, they were like, the Simpsons reference. They told him like, Joe, you need to look intense out there. And so like as he's like losing it, he remembers, oh yeah, intensity.
Yeah,
and he just like spams it really quick.
Well, like now that he said that he's not an expert in policy and procedure, but then didn't he also say that he's been in the Senate for like 120 years?
Yeah.
So you would think after 120 years you would be an expert and know how to get some of this stuff done.
Yeah.
I literally felt like finally America, how many people actually really watch press conferences? I mean, except for Trump's, because Trump's were actually entertaining. So maybe they were banking on the fact that no one's going to watch this. But for those of us that did anyone else feel like they were like in the movie The Wizard of Oz? Like we're literally watching the curtain like be pulled back. We're actually sitting here going, hello, Biden is not running the show.
Yeah, we've
been telling you this. He has been propped up. He is this puppet. We got to look behind the curtain and see at this point, like the deep state is running this entire show. He has nothing to do with this. And it was completely evident after watching that press conference.
I mean, to your point, Amy, we saw from the pictures that surfaced from the press conference that not only did Joe Biden appear to rely on notes for his answers, he also had a list of, if we could show this. So here's the notes that he had, his little talking points, because, I mean, you can't expect the president to remember things like China spends 3 times more on infrastructure than the United States, or the U.S. now ranks 13th globally in infrastructure, which, by the way, he did say 85th, I think. So a little off there. Not 85th, but 13th. But he also had, if we could go to the next picture, he also had a list of journalists' names with their pictures. But I think what is really interesting about this is that it also had the journalists that he ended up calling on. It listed them, and it had a number out to the side, which coincided with the number that they were in order, the questions that he was answering. So number 1 was the first question that he went to. Number 2 was the second, and so on and so forth, because obviously this was planned out. Obviously they got the questions ahead of time. Again, it's like this news surfaced as if we didn't already know that even Jen Psaki herself was not fielding questions from reporters before answering them the next day in the White House briefing room. So Joe Biden can't even, I guess, be expected to remember reporters' names or the questions that they would ask. I mean, the entire thing, as Amy said, it was all just a setup. We're looking behind the curtain at, who's pulling this, we're not looking at who's pulling the strings, but we're seeing the puppet himself just kind of read off of everything that they have strategically laid out for him. And he can't even do that without a few gaffes.
I like it a lot, to be honest. It's just much more fitting. Like when we had Trump there, we had our semblance of hope. Like maybe he's going to clean the deep state. He's going to drain the swamp. But now that we know that every other institution in the country is completely corrupted, it's more fitting that we have someone like Joe Biden who is literally a puppet. It just makes more sense. I think it completes the picture a lot better. Even now, our argument for quite some time was that, well, if all else fails, we've got the military. Then they start doing TikTok dances and they're waving trans flags. Right. And so it turns out that we don't really have the military anymore. And so we don't have anything. So we can at least just laugh at the press conference. I saw the USA Today live stream on YouTube for a while, ratioed 5,000 dislikes, 2,000 likes. The comments were all making fun of him. Yeah. There's a proportion of the population who really likes those photos that he posts every week on his Twitter, 2 months down, 5 weeks down, or whatever. And those people are like, America's back and stuff. But everyone else is just kind of it's a circus.
We kind of saw this coming, guys. We told you this was going to happen and you didn't listen.
We warned you a long time ago. I mean, the whole thing was just, I don't know if it was sad or if it was just a realization of everything that we've been saying. I mean, but I just kind of watched it going, my head is going to explode. And thinking back to, I remember Kaylee always bringing a big old notebook with her, but she never had time to read through things. I mean, Trump never took anything with him.
Well, yeah, because I think that the entire point of a White House press secretary bringing notes is that you are getting your talking points from the president, right? So you can say, this is what he says, this is what his strategy is. When the president himself is holding the notes and having to read the note cards from, it's well, hold on a second. Who are you getting these talking points from? Because you're supposed to be the one that's creating the talking points that other people are saying. So it's a little scary there.
It was even funny because Joe Biden is so willing to capitulate to the journalists if they push him on a question because he's not a strong leader, whereas Trump would just no. And they'd be like, but Mr. President, the scientists are saying that the globe is getting hotter. And he just, you'll see. It's just raw instinct and strength versus Joe Biden's just well, what am I supposed to say?
Yeah.
It's sad.
It was funny too when, Yamiche was basically well, everyone knows you're a great guy, Joe. Everyone knows you're a moral guy. And he's like, yeah, that's right. I am a good guy. It was kind of the back and forth there. But I was surprised. Cecilia Vega, I know, asked a pretty detailed, in-depth question on the border. So it was a little surprising, I think, for some people to see at least some semblance of journalistic integrity there. I mean, I'm not going to go so far as to say they're acting like true journalists. I'm just saying there was like a little tiny semblance.
They allowed it in. They allowed one question in there that he was fully prepared for.
Right, he was
had a scripted answer to respond to, you know.
But I mean, and as I have said in the past, the way to make the press actually report on what's going on in the presidency is to A, shut them out because they don't like that, and B, get rid of their their arch nemesis was Trump. They got rid of him, and now they're like, okay, so how do I make myself the story again? They've got to make themselves the story. But one thing that the Biden administration is getting hit on for, Joe Biden himself said, he was just a little off on this that he purported as fact, that he had said that they are expelling most of the families when they show up at the border. He said we're expelling most of them. Well, it's actually just an average of 13% of the nearly 13,000 family members attempting to cross the U.S.-Mexico border that they actually are expelling. So, I mean, it's just 13 versus the majority of, which would be over 50. So he almost had it.
Oops.
It was really close. Yeah, but not quite there, John.
I just forgot to carry the 4. It was just very small. You're saying that as though it's a problem. Didn't you know that diversity is our greatest strength?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And our compassion.
Yeah, our compassion. Don't ask me to elaborate because I won't.
Right.
But it is our greatest strength.
Yeah.
I have bumper stickers in my car if you want some. Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
But I mean, I guess that's the idea, is that you are not compassionate unless you just expect the United States to just welcome in all of these people, tens of thousands of them at this point. Where they're going to go, other than the Dallas Convention Center, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But we're supposed to just let them show up and figure out where to put them later. Yeah. And by the way, never mind all of the homeless people that we already have.
Well, that's why this is so ridiculous, because it's all under the guise of compassion, but then there's zero compassion when it comes for the taking care of our own people and the own problems that we have going on in our country right now. And you can push people's compassion so far, because also compassion has to be coupled with like the resources to be able to do what you want people to do: feed, clothe, house, take care of somebody. Mm-hmm. And when those resources run out, you really have to look at, okay, we can only be pushed so far with our compassion before that runs out.
Right, which is why the California Foster Department, they are asking foster parents they're giving them the option of how many migrant children they can house, and there's an option for 26 or more.
That's actually a really good point, too, about like the compassion with resource allocation. Like, can politicians truly be compassionate by reallocating our tax money to other people? And then, moreover, it's like, okay, we have our government established for the American people. So, like, if you want to make an argument in favor of like a welfare state, like I could at least understand that in principle, but then to expand that to anybody who wants to come over here is just like, why? What interests do you have at stake?
My question for those who continue to lecture us over and over again about how non-compassionate we are because we don't want to accept this in. How about we send them to their house? How about we let every single politician who is doing nothing to help with this border crisis, how about we send the 26 for the maximum number?
How about you take 26 or more migrant children in your house?
Also, like, how compassionate is it when you were literally setting the ground for a breeding ground for human trafficking? I mean, this is so, we may not even have time to jump into all that, but I'm like, this is literally a sex trafficker, human trafficker's dream situation right now. I'll just take in 26 kids, undocumented children, and have no parents. No one's going to follow. Who's going to follow up with all these kids and where they're at? We'll take them in. I mean, who even has time to vet all of these people at this point. When they're begging people, foster homes, to take people in, I'm sure you're going to see a large number of people signing up, and maybe the vetting process isn't going to be there.
Which is, again, it's so frustrating because I was just reading a news story that came across when I was, scanning the news. It was a local story about a 17-year-old boy who was still waiting on. He was a foster kid and an orphan, and didn't have a family, and was like, I really hope to get some sort of family before I age out of the system. Mm-hmm. And it's like, God, we've got people here that we don't take care of, but you're not compassionate unless you let a bunch of people flood across our border.
Expel them. They should be expelled. They should be repatriated to the other countries. They should just get completely out of government. Because it's not like they have allegiance to us. They don't even have allegiance to the concept of America.
Yeah.
They know that they can benefit in terms of greater wealth and power if they just let anybody into America. They are post-national. They don't even believe in the concept of America because they know that they can import the entire third world and they'll live in a gated community, or maybe they'll just go live somewhere else. It's completely about eroding everything that made America America, and then they can just keep to themselves while the working class and middle class are displaced and everything's just completely eroded.
Yeah, amen. All right, we've got more to come. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Bonner Wines. So Bonner makes their wines down in Argentina. Now, they have these vineyards that they're up to 9,000 feet in altitude, which you may not be thinking makes a huge difference, but it really does. The wines contain a huge amount of resveratrol, which you're probably like, I don't know what that word is. Are you speaking English? Well, let me just tell you, it's what makes your wines even more healthy. It is heart healthy, and it boosts the longevity of your life in many studies. So what you can say is, I'm drinking wine for my health. When you have Bonner wines, do you even need another excuse?
I'm so excited about this.
I know.
Come August.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, that whole thing that I just had to go through. So their wines, not only do they have that resveratrol, but they also have less sugar, less chemicals, less additives than your standard wine. They also taste incredible. They've got notes of blackberry, dark cherry, smoke. They go great with a good steak, but you better cook it medium rare because that's the only way to cook your steaks. You got to get some of these wines. They are flying off of the shelves. They can barely keep them in stock, but they just got another shipment in. So don't sleep on these. You got to go to cowgirlwine2021.com. You will get 50% off of the wine and 50% off of the shipping. That is a huge deal. Go snag go snag a case before they run out. It is cowgirlwine2021.com. Hey, do it for your health. Cowgirlwine2021.com. Back in a minute. As we talk about politicians and how awful they are, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, not him, signed the Republican-backed Election Integrity Act of 21. This was SB 202. He signed that into law yesterday. Of course, you saw Democrats protest the bill because what it actually did was reduced voter fraud by enforcing conformity across the state. It amped up voter ID, restricting drop boxes, and expanded in-person voting, among additional election-related overhauls. So obviously trying to ensure that our elections are secure, accessible, and fair. So the Democrats' argument was, of course, that it was really mean. We're talking about compassion. It was really mean. It was really, it was incompassionate and racist, obviously. But one of the Democrat lawmakers got arrested, handcuffed outside of Brian Kemp's office as she tried to get in and disrupt when he was signing the bill into law. Here's a little bit of that exchange.
Why are y'all arresting her? Can y'all cite the code? What did she do?
Where are you taking me?
What did she do?
Stop. Where are you taking me?
Okay, that's enough. I mean, come on. Could she be making that any more dramatic? I mean, really? She's the way she's walking and she turns around. Really?
I mean, was this like a Capitol riot? Was this like her form of like?
Well, that's the argument.
I mean, so it's okay for her
This is an
to wanna go
insurrection.
in, and disrupt our process here.
The democratic process. She's going in and interrupting it and wondering what they're arresting her for or what they're handcuffing her for. John, I would just like to know when she will be have charges put on her for inciting an insurrection.
AOC at the border, the photo op, this with the photo op. Such is the nature of estrogen in politics. It's oil and water. It just doesn't go together. I mean, they're exploiting these things for attention. And it's just like.
Can we talk about that for a second, actually?
I would literally love nothing more.
Yes.
Because that really is one of my main problems with all of these women, and they're making it, everything is so emotional.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you guys are making me not ever want a woman president, because you're not going to be able to like get with the big dogs when it comes to foreign policy and stuff. You're just going to be like, oh, he made a comment about my hair and I just didn't really appreciate it.
That's the problem with female narcissism. Male narcissism is actually very charming. Like, look at Donald Trump. Like, he gets up there. Look, I'm really rich. I say this not, never forget the presidents of the United States, if you look back at the archives, made a joke about the size of his hands on national television. Like, this is what the guy did, and everyone thought it was funny. Whereas female narcissism is much more like everything has to be about me. Like AOC getting up there and crying at the border or in the congressional hearing. Yeah, at the parking lot, or when she was talking about, how her life was threatened by the people who went into the Capitol and things like that. It's just like so off-putting, and such is the nature.
Amy, do you disagree? Did I strike a nerve with you?
No, you're not wrong. We see it in the business world over and over again as well. And I just keep telling people, I'm like, this isn't actually doing anything to further our cause as women. Like, why can't we just earn our spots, work hard, take the title, the identity politics out of everything that we do? Because to me, like, you're going to gain a lot more respect when you do it that way versus trying to play on, I don't know, these gender politics and identity politics that people are trying to push constantly. But they know that it works. They know that it gets some attention. But it's just very annoying, especially like for somebody like myself who I had to work very hard to get where I am. I didn't play this card over and over. Actually, in a lot of cases, I had to overcome being a woman in the industry that I'm in. And fine. All right. It made me dig my heels in and work a lot harder. And so I'm like, it's just really annoying, I think, to see.
To that point, too, going back to the story of what's happening in Georgia, you're looking at them tightening up, making your vote count more. Right, I think, because I think everyone's real votes count more when you discard or make it harder for illegal voting to happen. That makes your vote count more as a citizen. And instead of being like, great, our election matters, let's make sure your voices are heard, the Democrats are like, this is really racist, which to me is like, I can't think of very many things that are more racist than assuming that because of the color of my skin, I don't have the ability to go get an ID. Well, like, how stupid do you think I am?
Like, the most bipartisan thing that you would think everyone would be jumping on the bandwagon.
It shouldn't be controversial.
It should not be. Like, let's reduce voter fraud. Because guess what? The more opportunity there is for voter fraud, well, aren't the Democrats worried that like Republicans could go and commit voter fraud too? Wouldn't they want to be putting things in place to
because they know Republicans don't have the balls.
Well, we never win the dead people vote. Like we are like.
We want to talk about courage. Let's stop talking about stopping voter fraud. Let's talk about stopping voting, or at least like reducing it. There should be a test that you have to pass. I don't understand. No, like unironically, I don't understand why people who aren't paying taxes get to vote as to where my tax money is allocated. That's a bad incentive. Is that not like a conflict of interest?
I completely agree. You understand. You understand why they thought to have, property owners be the ones to have their votes count, right? Because when you look back at it, you're like, okay, I can see where they were coming from, because it's a huge conflict of interest when you're saying, I want this person to go do more things with these other people's money that's going to benefit me.
That's what's so
why do 16 and 17-year-olds need to vote? on things like this big push now is trying to lower the voting age to 16. I'm like, what? They literally, I'm terrified to be driving on the road next to them. Like, I don't want them voting on policy that they have no idea what they're voting for.
That's such a good point. It's like, I don't understand how these people go into traffic or browse the comment section of a YouTube video and think, gee, I'm really glad all these people get to vote. Like, this is just so great. Like, the guy, like, you'll be like driving and then someone will cut you off, like turning out of a Target parking lot, and you look behind you, there was no one. They would have just had to wait for one more car. And it's like, this person gets to decide where my money is spent. I love democracy. That's the other thing that's funny too about how cowardly conservatives are, is because, you know, our entire identity is the founding fathers. We're geniuses, scholars of history. What'd you think about their attitudes towards voting? Well, they got that wrong. No, they got that wrong. Democracy is our greatest virtue. Like, they didn't like democracy. They studied Plato, they studied Aristotle. The best example would be, I think Plato wrote about the ship. Like, if you're on a ship, you don't want everyone like, let's turn the wheel this way, or maybe let's do this way. You want like the most competent people being in charge of the decisions that's going to affect everybody. And the reason they want like mass democracy is because they're in control of all the media apparatuses, and so they can set the narratives. And so naturally, if more people who are less intelligent and have less at stake are voting, like, they can solidify like a one-party state under the name of virtue and more democracy. Because if everybody gets a say, then it's like better.
Well, look how excited everyone was. Like, the more free stuff you promised to give them. They're going to go out and vote for that. And then they wake up and like, but I didn't get my free stuff. But guess what? The next round again, they know. Just offer them more and they'll forget it.
And you idiots will take it and run with it again and forget that they ain't gonna pull you out of what they got you into. But, you know, that's just, you know, they're trying to fortify an election here. So we can't get in the way of that. All right, we've got more to come. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Candid Company. All right, so if there are those of you out here who maybe you're like me and you or your parents when you were younger spent a ton of money on your teeth to be nice and straight, and then you stopped wearing your retainer. And then guess what? Your teeth actually shift after you become an adult. I learned that the hard way, but I use Candid now. Candid is a clear, comfortable, removable, and practically invisible aligner to help straighten your teeth like braces. By the way, it's going to save you a ton of money because they're way less expensive than braces. And they're easier to do because what you do is you go online with Candid. They send you a package. They send you these impressions. You like make the moldings. You send it off to a licensed orthodontist who is an expert in tooth movement, and they are going to send you back. I got like 12 different aligners in a container, in a set, and you wear each of them 2 weeks at a time, and they're going to shift your teeth. So you can do it from the comfort and convenience of your own home, knowing that you're getting an expert in tooth movement, knowing that they are sending you the same exact thing that you're going to get, but you're going to get it at way less of a cost. You can go to candidco.com to get your straighter smile today. It is candidco.com. Right now you can save $75 on their starter kit. It is candidco.com. Make sure you do candidco.com/Y. Use promo code Y for that $75 off. candidco.com/Y. Use promo code Y to get $75 extra off. Back in a minute. Dr. Robert Redfield, who is the former director for the CDC, is now coming out and saying that he believes that coronavirus escaped from a Chinese lab. He said, "I do not believe that this somehow came from bat to a human." Here is Robert Redfield on with CNN's Sanjay Gupta. Watch.
If I was to guess, this virus started transmitting somewhere in September, October in Wuhan.
September, October.
That's my own view. It's an only opinion. I'm allowed to have opinions now. You know, I am of the point of view that I still think the most likely etiology of this pathogen in Wuhan was from a laboratory, escaped. Other people don't believe that. That's fine. Science will eventually figure it out. It's not unusual for respiratory pathogens that are being worked on in a laboratory to infect a laboratory worker.
All right, I guess he's a conspiracy theorist because you're a conspiracy theorist if that's what you think, right?
Well, did CNN know that he was going to say that? I mean, did they get his answer prior to going on? I mean, they let this guy on the air say this kind of stuff.
Spreading conspiracy theories. That's misinformation. I think CNN should be shut down. Period.
Yes, I agree. That's why.
But yeah, I mean, Dr. Robert Redfield, former director, and now you did hear him say, well, I'm allowed to have opinions now. so this is my opinion. I would think that his opinion comes from a place of being more informed on all of these matters, more informed than anyone at this table. You would think, right?
Way more
He has
informed.
access to more information and doesn't have to go along with the government narrative. But John's looking at me like
I mean, I don't know. I'm
push
skeptical.
back on me, John. Push back.
I will. I'm skeptical of the sort of like, okay, we're going to allow this guy on CNN and he's going to say, I think it started in a lab, so that maybe the viewer who's skeptical of the whole thing is like, I knew it was China. I've noticed a trend while our country has been collapsing in the last like 40 or 50 years, where we try to, because we can't be unified under things, we try to point at like at least what we're opposed to. So like, in the Cold War we had the Soviets, then we had the Middle East for a while that was gonna, I guess, invade. Like CNN aided in the narrative that literally convinced middle Americans, Joe Sixpack, that all of a sudden like Iraq was gonna try to invade America. That was like an actual thing that people believed. And now it's like China. So we ignore what's happening in our government as far as like the draconian lockdown measures, and then we're like, hey, wait a minute, China's bad. Grr, we're mad at China. We don't like them. And our government's like, yeah, China's the one taking your freedom, not us. Chinese people are going to be here, telling you that you can't hug grandma or have a party with like more than 5 people or something. Like, honestly, when they invade, I will greet them as liberators. Like, it's just going to be.
Well, okay, so Amy, let me get your thoughts, and then I want to come back to that because I have a question for you on that.
I mean, yeah, I love listening to your commentary. That's actually probably so true.
True.
Yeah, but then on the flip side of that, I mean, so what are you going to do when you've got an administration that is in bed with China? And I mean, then how are they going to play? What's their next move here? Like, what are they going to do? They're not going to put the sanctions on them. They're not going to, raise the duties and the import. I mean, so what are they going to do? They just deflect?
Well, and so my question kind of goes along with that, because I think what we're seeing too at the same time is our lawmakers jump on this bandwagon of stop Asian American, stop Pacific Islander, hate. Stop this hate, stop this racism, and they're going with the racism idea so that it will become taboo. You're not going to be able to criticize China, because if you criticize China, you will be called a racist.
Yeah, I was thinking about that for a really long time, because that just happened seemingly overnight.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, what is it? AAPI is like this thing, and I was thinking about it, like, because Asian Americans tend to be pretty socially conservative. Like, they vote Democrat, but like they're not on board with a lot of these more progressive narratives. And so I think what that is about is like trying to bring them into what I refer to as like the homogenous woke coalition in order to like mobilize against like conservatives and traditional Americans by painting them as like victims of this racism. When frankly, if you ask any Asian person, like they'll tell you. They're quite aware of like who's actually targeting them. But the media wants to convince people that like, oh wait, there's another. It's like, when you're a kid and you're like collecting like Pokemon or something, like I have to take care of this. And so you've got like these white liberals who are like, I will save you black people. I will save you Hispanics. Asians too, like please let me save all of you. I'm so virtuous. It's like the same thing, just like adding more things for them to feel as though they have to protect.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a good point. I still think there's something to driving the narrative that you're racist if you you can't say anything about Asian Americans. I think that we're going to see that translate over before our Chinese overlords come to.
Well, they have to, because a lot of Asian people have started to push back against things like affirmative action because they're aware that it's negatively affecting them.
They're being discriminated
So now they have to be like, well, we have to protect you from the white man, and so join us. And so I think that's what it's about fundamentally.
Yeah. All right. So another note on COVID, Virginia wedding venue. I just love all these lawsuits that are coming from COVID. I'm like, the more the merrier. Sue the hell out of all of these states. Virginia wedding venue is filing a lawsuit against Governor Northam, claiming discrimination in COVID restrictions. So they said wedding venues are being treated differently than other outdoor venues. The governor allowed outdoor entertainment venues such as baseball stadiums, raceways, and concerts to have 30% occupancy with no cap. This is discriminatory. Why can a wedding venue not operate with up to 30% capacity? And this is unequal treatment. And I tend to agree, not just with the outdoor venues, but just generally speaking with all of the COVID restrictions that we've seen. They're all arbitrary. They're all not based on science at all. And the fact that bars had to remain closed, where restaurants could reopen and still serve alcohol, the same drinks that you would be getting from a bar. The bars could have maintained the same type of capacity, but well, you know, big daddy government didn't trust you guys to be drinking at a bar and still maintain that social distancing, so he knew better and had to shut you down. I say sue the hell out of all of these states.
Absolutely. And I love to see people flip and use the words that a lot of these lawmakers are pushing so heavily. So when you're friendly, open your eyes, when you've literally set up everything that you do based off of is it discriminatory or not?
Right.
And then I love when people are like, you know what, two can play this game.
Yeah.
So anyone that feels discriminated against, well, why don't you just use the same language to come right back at them? And I hope we see more and more of this.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're talking about discriminatory rules, I mean, this really does actually apply, unlike a lot of the things that they claim. John, last word.
I was just going to question why the state would want to prevent people from forming families, which are the backbone of a free and prosperous society. I just can't figure it out.
I don't know.
I'll have to Google it or ask Jim Acosta what his opinion is. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe ask the Black Lives Matter movement. They might have a
little
bit of an opinion on that. All right, we've got more to come. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Built Bar. If you are looking for a healthy but delicious snack, maybe you're always craving junk food, maybe you made a New Year's resolution that you have kind of let go by the wayside. Let me tell you about Built Bar. Okay, Built Bars they're covered in 100% chocolate, and they are a protein bar, but they taste like a candy bar. So they're low in calories, they're low in carbs, they're high in protein and fiber. So you're gonna feel good about eating it, but it's also gonna satisfy your sweet tooth, okay? I'm telling you, everyone that I have given Built Bars to comes back to me and they're like, can I have more? I feel like a drug dealer in my dressing room. You've been in there, right?
We keep saying I'm going to come by your dressing room, and I don't. I'm coming by your dressing room.
Come by. I've got all of my Built Bars in my dressing room, and I'm doling them out like drugs. And everyone comes back, and they're like, "Do you have more Built Bars? Do you have more Built Bars? I need more Built Bars." They come in a bunch of different flavors: mint brownie, cookies and cream. Coconut brownie chunk is one of my favorites. Also, chocolate chip cookie dough. Okay, so you got to get some. They're delicious. They're going to fill you up. They're healthy. You can feel good about it. Go to BuiltBar.com. Use promo code News15 to get 15% off of your next order. It is News15 for 15% off at Built Bar, B-U-I-L-T, BuiltBar.com. Back in a minute. The Minnesota Department of Education released a draft of its new social studies curriculum standards. You guys are going to love this, as there's a new emphasis on diversity, equity, and gender, because we can't talk about anything in life without putting emphasis on diversity, equity, and gender. So the committee wants to begin social studies classes with a land acknowledgement. Land acknowledgements tell students that they are learning on land that was conquered by Americans, though once belonged to Native Americans. So let's just get that land acknowledgement out of the way now. Learning social justice curriculum begins in the first grade. 6 and 7-year-olds may be taught about systemic discrimination and how groups have fought against such discrimination. Let's see, 4th graders will investigate how race, ethnicity, gender, age, religion, and geographic location shapes the opinions of people. 5th grade, students are asked to investigate how groups like religious groups, women, LGBTQ have advocated for access to greater rights. 5th graders, by the way, will talk about the ongoing debate of following the death of George Floyd and the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movements. Yes, I said 5th freaking grade, 5th graders. 6th graders will describe the goals, offenses, penalties, long-term consequences, privacy concerns of Minnesota's juvenile justice system and evaluate the impact on Black, Indigenous persons of colors, which of course is BIPOC communities.
The iron law of propaganda. The sooner you start the conditioning, the less it has to make sense. And so if you can start them in kindergarten or 1st grade or whatever, like, they're not going to question it. They're just going to believe it. It's going to establish their entire frame of reference. And especially with some of the things that they're talking about, and frankly, even exaggerating pertaining to American history, if you can emotionally traumatize children, then later in life, if anybody tries to actually present to them the truth or correct what they've been taught, they will actually become emotional. Like, how dare you question what's happened? And they will be so resistant towards that truth because they've conditioned them. So, like, yeah, it sucks for us, but, you know, you got to respect the hustle. Good strategy on their part.
Well, and it pits the children against their parents. I mean, look, I have no problem. There are aspects of this where I have no problem teaching about our history and our past and how we've overcome challenges and things and wrong things that we've, this collective, like, we've done in our country. I have no problem with that, but it's the forced context, that they're teaching these kids. It's the propaganda. And then it's the lack of parental influence in a lot of these children's lives as well, where you're not getting two voices. You're not hearing an opposing voice to this. A lot of parents aren't even involved in the curriculum. They have no idea what's being taught to their kids. And all of a sudden, one day they wake up and a parent voices an opinion that differs from this, and you've got massive infighting within the family. Just another way to break down the core unit of the family. And I think it's just goes to show how important it is for parents to start getting involved.
Please. Or get your kids out of public schools entirely.
And hopefully we have that choice, here in the next 10, 20 years, because as they talk about removing school choice, you never know what your options are going to be. So you have to train your children young. You have to train them to think for themselves, to explore and to look at all facets of education instead of just taking what one teacher tells you and listening to it as gospel truth and believing it.
Yeah. Or you could just teach your kids like I do that liberals are crybabies. I feel like we don't need a differing opinion there. It's just liberals are crybabies.
Yeah, you have to take their very childlike perceptions of things and then find a way to explain them very intellectually.
Right.
Like physiognomy, for example. If someone is ugly and a child is they're ugly, yeah, that might be immature, but you can look back to the Greco-Roman discipline like physiognomy. They thought that they could infer an individual's character from their physical appearance. And it's okay, so you've got the lower IQ, you're ugly, I don't have to listen to you. And then you've got the middle IQ, that's an ad hominem, it doesn't affect my argument. You've got the high IQ, you look spiritually unwell. I will not listen to you, but I will pray for you. That's where I'm at, and that's what my children will know.
Well, while we're talking about kind of indoctrination of public schools, which, by the way, if you guys think, I live in a school district where that's not happening, check again. As Amy was saying, a lot of parents don't realize this is going on right under their noses. Really quickly, we've got about a minute left, but I saw the Second Amendment right now, obviously, is under attack, and a lot of it is starting in the schools, Amy. I was looking at worksheets that are going home with kids, and it's explain why your generation might be the generation that changes the gun culture in America.
Yeah, well, they're going to do exactly what you're saying, emotionalize the situation, only point to the negative things, the bad that comes from, people that get their hands on guns that have evil intentions. And so that's why it's so important as parents, if you believe in the Second Amendment, if you believe in the importance of it, that you are teaching and training your child from a very young age about how to be a safe, responsible gun owner, and that a gun is a tool and in the hands of a good person can be used for good. So we have to combat that message.
Yeah. By the way, I feel like this is a great time to remind everyone, Alexo Athletica, you got to go there. Women, especially, empower yourselves. Get those leggings. Carry at all times when you can carry.
I can't tell you how many times look at what grocery store outings. You think it's just a normal day, and how quickly normal everyday activities can take a tragic turn. So yes, carry, wear your gun, carry with confidence every day.
All right, go ahead.
Can you imagine being shot in self-defense by a woman in leggings? That in itself is a big enough deterrent. Not even gonna risk it. It's one thing if she's got the purse holster, but this chick's in Lululemons, but with a 40. It's just
it's better than Lululemons. All right, we gotta take a break. Back in a minute. It's too embarrassing.
Yeah, no, obviously, you shouldn't be robbing women, but
we were just talking about how annoying people are when they don't know anything about guns and they try to tell you how horribly scary AR-15s are and that they're weapons of war. And we don't need weapons of war on the streets. It's have you ever bothered to I don't know, be in person with one or shoot one or anything before you talk about how big and scary they are? I think it's racist, quite honestly.
It is. What's the weapon? If you look at the Mini 14, the Ruger, it's .223. You can get a 30-round magazine for it, but because it's brown, like a hunting rifle, they're not afraid of it.
That's what I'm saying.
They're projecting their racism towards the African-American AR-15.
That's what I'm saying. It's time that we call it out for what it is, which is pure racism. It's scary and it's black, and because it's black, you think that it's somehow going to harm you more than all the other guns.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Shame on all of you racists. By the way, if you have not yet subscribed to BlazeTV, make sure that you do so, especially if you believe in what we're doing, the things that we're fighting for, the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, against big tech. Make sure you sign up for the subscription. You can save $10 off when you sign up for a year by using promo code NEWS only at blazetv.com. It is blazetv.com. Use promo code NEWS to get $10 off. Thanks for being here, guys.
It's fun.
As always.